Next, we have Patrick Doyle, Big Hits and Big Data, Exploring Collegiate Concussion Reporting Culture. He is pursuing his Master of Arts in Psychological Sciences, and his advisor is Heidi Wayment.
In 2017, the head coach of the University of Alabama made $11.1 million. Clemson's made $8.5, and Michigan's made just over $7. Across the United States, in over 50% of the states, the highest paid public employee is the head coach of an NCAA football team. That doesn't make us feel great, right? Especially considering how much money and time we've put into our graduate educations for smaller paychecks. So why should we care about how much money these men make? Similarly, why should we care that members of the public are willing to spend almost $700 for season tickets to the Ohio State football games? Or that Texas A&M currently has 27 alumni in the NFL. As someone who doesn't care that much about football, I was asking a similar question. What I do care about, though, is the problem that the NCAA is facing. An estimated 50% of NCAA football players admit to underreporting concussion symptoms. Now, since concussions are associated with long-term health problems like chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, I was interested in identifying some of the barriers that are stopping people from reporting. And despite psychologists' best effort to use theory to explain individuals' behavior, we're still coming up short, which makes sense, right? After all, everyone talks about how concussion culture is really stopping people from reporting these concussions, but nobody's testing it. So, using some of the information that I mentioned earlier, along with a handful of other indicators, I decided to try to model NCAA football culture. Using some data scraping techniques, I was able to pull all of these variables from a handful of different websites, and then use some fancy statistical analyses to explore the relationships between these variables for all 130 Division I NCAA football teams. From that analysis, one component emerged: the pressure to succeed. Now, my next step was to see if the pressure to succeed was in some way, shape, or form related to the amount of concussions that each team was expected to have received during the 2017 season. Teams don't usually brag about how many concussions each of their players got during the season, but I did find some websites that were run by gamblers that took very detailed notes of all of these different injuries. So I tallied up the amount of concussions and the amount of head and neck injuries that each team sustained. My analysis found that this pressure to succeed, which again is built from variables that you could look up on your phones right now, was able to significantly predict the amount of concussions that each team was expected to have received during the 2017 season. Now, this research is important for two reasons. First, it's the first time that public information has been able to be used to model a cultural level variable, and then also link it to health outcomes. Secondly, and a little bit more applied, this not only tested, but supported the idea that there is pressure from a cultural level that's stopping players from reporting their concussions and, unfortunately, threatening their brain health. Thank you.